Good day, OER 20. This is Isabel Tarling. I'm presenting on the Language Across the Curriculum course, a course that we developed for teachers in South Africa and further afield on how to teach language in their different subject disciplines. I'm the Director of Lemina Education Services and also recently been appointed the Head of Postgraduate Research at the Two Oceans Graduate Institute, an online university in Cape Town. The Language Across the Curriculum course was developed by a collaboration between the Western Cape Education Department and myself, Isabel Tarling, from Lemina Education Services. We developed this as part of UNESCO's Open Education for a Better World project. Just to give a background of what we do at Lemina, after I finished my PhD, the research from my PhD was focused on how to help teachers to change their traditional chalk and talk pedagogies towards pedagogies of integrating technology into their teaching and learning. So Lemina was developed as a vehicle to help teachers to integrate technologies into their educational spaces. I've developed a range of different courses as part of Lemina's packaging, and as you can see on the left, the creative arts courses develop content that teachers use to integrate technologies in their classrooms. And on the right, you can see the foundation phase teachers are using different courses to learn how to use mobile devices in their classrooms. In South Africa, we have different contextual challenges, like in rural contexts or in schools where there's very little resources, there's often a lack of connectivity with high data costs. So the teachers don't often have access to internet in their classrooms. So we develop different strategies and pedagogies that teachers can use to integrate their technologies in their classrooms in offline spaces as well as online spaces. They'll develop teaching strategies and teaching resources in online spaces that they then can use in offline spaces as well. If you look at the creative arts course, for example, the creative arts program is about visual literacy in this particular lesson. So we walk an empathetic journey where the teacher discovers the journey and the life story of Vincent van Gogh. And through the life story of Vincent van Gogh, they learn about the design elements and design principles that goes into designing visual art. And then they discover these principles and elements in the journey, then analyze it in Vincent van Gogh's artworks, so that the empathetic journey of discovery leads them to apply these principles and elements in very different ways, and technology becomes a vehicle towards that. In this way, the teacher is not only developing their technological knowledge, but we're also working on developing teachers' content knowledge and their technological knowledge and pedagogical knowledge at the same time. The reason for doing this is that we don't want teachers to walk away with just a skill to use a device, but the emphasis here is to develop teachers' skills to innovate and create with technology. My philosophy is that if we can help teachers to learn to innovate and create with technology, we can transfer these skills to classrooms. If we want 21st century learners who can create and innovate, we have to equip the teachers to create and innovate. If teachers can create and innovate, they can teach this. If they can't create and innovate with technology, it's very difficult for them to teach this. So enough about Lemina. Let me tell you about our course, the Language Across the Curriculum course. The course was started because of a high need for such a course that was developed from data. We know in our classrooms that language is an issue, but the data from the SACMIC report that was published in 2018 came out and showed us that language is a huge barrier to learning that teachers could have told you a long time ago, but the data now confirms it. If you look at the data of when learners speak English in homes, you can see that there's quite a lot of children who never or who only sometimes speak English in their homes per province. But English is mostly used in schools as the language of learning and teaching. This means that in up to about 64% of children's lived experiences, they only hear English at school or very rarely hear it at home. Their primary caregivers, their parents or extended family almost never speak English at home, but they're expected to learn English when they go to school and learn all their subjects in English, yet they don't learn how to speak this language at home. only ever learn how to speak this language at school. So this is quite a challenge for our learners to succeed in an academic space where they're not exposed to English as a language of communication at home, but only ever exposed to it at school. So we decided we want to change this. At a national level, a lot is being done to support English development in classrooms. So, for example, grade R to 3 children receive home language education, and then in that grade R to 3 4-year cycle, the teachers communicatively teach the grade R to 3 children how to speak English in a very communicative, fun-filled way. There's also a policy guideline that helps teachers to navigate this space with a lot of printed material that's made available to teachers to do this. In the Western Cape, for the next 5 years, language across the curriculum forms part of a provincial strategy to focus on reading and developing learners' ability to read for meaning, because this was addressed from a national and a provincial strategy to say that this is a huge priority in our province to get learners to read for meaning in the next 5 years. So in March, the reading strategy was launched, and the language across the curriculum course forms one aspect of this strategy to support our subject teachers to teach language in their courses and in their different subjects. We looked at face-to-face workshops, which has traditionally been the way of upskilling teachers through professional development, and realized that to scale such a course across rural districts and across the vast districts of the Western Cape and other areas would place a huge financial burden, and it would take slowly. So we thought, well, let's try online learning, which has not been done very widely in the country or the province before. When we decided to design our course, we chose 5 very strategic focus areas to make our course design unique and successful. Firstly, we decided to align our course very carefully to national and provincial goals and priorities. We specifically looked at what the national priorities are and the strategic goals of the province. And as you can see, the LAC falls directly in the 5-year strategy of the Western Cape province, but also within national priorities to develop language across the curriculum. We also worked very closely with different stakeholders to make this process a reality. Next, we looked at leadership, and we worked very closely with the curriculum leadership of the Western Cape Education Department and took our lead from Director Karen Dudley and her office. And what was amazing is the amount of time that she carved out of the calendar for us to work with her team. And the senior curriculum planners and myself worked very, very closely over a period of about 3 or 4 months to develop this course. Director Dudley made time available for us to sit at the offices, and they came and worked at my home, where we sat and worked very carefully to develop every module in the course. And without that leadership, we would not have been here today. Thirdly, we used a design thinking process. Now, this design thinking process helped us to work in iterative cycles of design, development, implementation, evaluation. And because of this process, we were able to develop the course through different stages and learn in each stage to refine and review and refine as we went. So the first iterations of the course looks nothing like what it looks at the moment in the online space. We also worked as part of the design thinking process in very close consultation with research and with the lived experiences of teachers and practitioners. We leaned very heavily on the research of Jim Cummins and his work on BICS and CALP, basic interpersonal communication skills, and cognitive academic language proficiencies, and worked that right throughout the course to help teachers understand, especially our subject teachers, what the difference is between just developing learners' ability to speak English and also then to learn the academic language of their subject. Then we spoke to a principal and his teachers from a local school that has a huge immigrant population in the school. And there's up to about 22 languages spoken in his school. That means his teachers have to teach learners with a very diverse linguistic background. And he had the privilege of going to America and learning from the SIOP model of how to teach language in these different spaces. And he spoke to us quite at length about the teachers' lived experiences of teaching in these different spaces, the math, science, and geography teachers, and how they've navigated these spaces. And putting the research and the lived experiences of these practitioners together, we then created our pathway of where we wanted the courses to go. And lastly, we used a caring pedagogies approach of including our subject teachers, where previously the burden of teaching language proficiency mostly fell on the language teachers in a school. We decided to open up the space and to equip all our teachers and use this mantra of saying that every teacher is a language teacher, and equipping all our teachers throughout the primary school subject areas to all be language teachers, no matter what their subject is, but that every teacher becomes a teacher who teaches language skills, and using this caring pedagogies approach to address this multi-generational problem. So what we then did was we created these 7 online modules. The first module that we built was specifically aimed at developing the language skills and academic language proficiencies of teachers who would come to the course. Our premise was that a subject teacher who comes to our course would not necessarily have the language background that a language teacher would have, and we would have to build this in a fun and engaging manner that they would be able to engage with and learn from. We didn't want to have a course where it's watch a video and answer questions, but we wanted to have a course that teachers could engage with and through lively engagement learn from and apply. Another key principle was we didn't want to have a course that is very theoretically driven. We wanted to have a practical course that teachers could implement straight away in their classrooms and implement what they had learned. So modules 2 to 6 is very subject specific, very practical, and it gives teachers immediate tools that they can go and implement in their classrooms. So every module of module 2 to 6 focuses on a different subject and then takes language skills in that subject and develops it for the teacher. In module 3, for example, which I'll show you in a minute, the focus is on maths. Module 4 is on science. But then we took a language area like listening and speaking in maths and reading in science and writing in social science. And we developed each one of those language areas for the teacher so that they can have the tools to go and implement this in their classroom. Then at the end of every module, the teacher has to go and apply what they had learned from module 1 and then the module that they choose to do. If they choose to do module 3 because they're a maths teacher, then they will go and implement that and create a lesson that applies the learning from module 1 and module 3. If they're a science teacher, they'll apply module 1 and module 3's lesson to create their lesson at the end of the day. The modules are also filled with self-marking quizzes and self-marking games, so there's not that dire consequence of I wrote a test and I got the marks and I failed, but it's always through games and low consequence activities that helps them to learn. In this way, we hybridized the TPACK model, that Mishra and Keula's TPACK model, to become the LTPACK model. So we developed teachers' technological knowledge by working in an online space with technological tools. We developed their pedagogical knowledge of teaching with different strategies in different spaces. We also developed teachers' content knowledge, as I'll show you, but we also developed teachers' language teaching knowledge, and that's where the LTPACK comes from. So it's a language TPACK and how to develop language in this space. So if you'd like to go and look at our course right now, you can use the link there. You can press pause on the video and go and open the link and go and register, or you can use your phone and scan the QR code and go and look at the course on your phone. While you're scanning, I'm going to tell you about the scaling and the reach of the course. So what we've done so far is the course is currently being implemented in all Western Cape schools. There's 36,000 teachers approximately in Western Cape schools, and over the next 5 years, all of these teachers will be given a chance to work on this course and to complete it in whichever subject they feel comfortable with. They can do it in all the subjects, or they can just do one subject, whichever subject they choose. Nationally and provincially, it's open to other provinces to use. And of course, because it's on UNESCO's Open Education for a Better World project page, other teachers around the world can use it as well. The course is also shared on social media, where other teachers around the world are welcome to open it and to use it. So I want to show you a little bit more about the course, where we are at the moment. So this is how the course looks at the moment. You can see we've created very few wall of words contexts and very few video click and play and answer questions pages. Instead of wall of words, we've broken down the content into bite-sized or chunked knowledge so that teachers can read quickly and get the knowledge into smaller bite-sized pieces that they can digest and engage with. And also vibrant colors so that the engagement is much more fun-filled and engaging in that way. So we also have used the terms that we're going to use throughout the course. We've laid the foundation in the first module to help the teacher to prepare as they work through the course where they're going. Remember, we spoke about Professor Jim Cummins' work on Bix and Kelp. We've included a video here that they can go and watch about Professor Cummins' work, that they can go and learn from him and hear directly what he has said about Bix and Kelp and how he has experienced it. Then the teacher can go and click on and learn from the different terms that they're going to experience in the course. This is repeated over and over in the course, and they can engage with it in different ways as they work through the course again. So they're reminded about it constantly as well. Oh, there we go. There's Director Dudley, who's so graciously led this project and made time for us. Without her, this project would not have been possible. Also, we've copyrighted this using the Creative Commons with attribution license. We've also said that it's for non-commercial reuse, so nobody's meant to make money out of this, and it's also for share and share alike. So if anyone wants to use this course, by all means, just use the Creative Commons copyrighted licensing. Then in Module 1.2, this is where we start building teachers' knowledge about teaching language skills. Again, no wall of words, but slow, chunked knowledge that can be ingested in slow, bite-sized pieces. We work with what is academic language, how do we work it. So in the first unit, they were gently introduced to Bix and Kelp with a video. Now we break it up even further, and now they can start engaging with it. They can start dragging and dropping the activities. There's no consequences, no dire consequences if they get it wrong. They can go and check on themselves, and it's a self-paced learning style. We've included videos where the video isn't just watch and play and sit back and go and play on your phone, but you have to watch. And as you watch, different activities arrive that you have to go and complete before you can carry on. So when I get to this activity, I have to first go and answer these questions before I can carry on with the video. The video won't play until I actually have answered the question. And when I've answered the question, then I can go and continue the video. In this way, we make sure that the viewer is actually engaging with the content as I carry on. Again, the teacher is practicing the language skills and getting familiar with the terms that we're using in the course, always laying the foundations of where we're going and making sure that the subject teacher who hasn't come across words like LOLT, LOLT, and proficiency and academic language, that those words are constantly being reinforced through different games and activities. Now, this is a lovely activity that we've designed here for teachers. We realize that subject teachers don't often have the language background that we would assume in a language space that language teachers have. So we've broken down everything to do with language skills that we take for granted. For example, wall of words. In a language space, wall of words to us is pretty self-explanatory. We know what it is, but we didn't want to assume that all subject teachers knew what wall of words were. So we've broken it down and explained exactly what it is. We've included resources online where teachers can go find out more, or where they can go and create wall of words. Then we've taken scaffolding and structuring, and we've said, what is scaffolding and structuring? What does it mean? Where can you find extra readings or extra viewing videos? Where can you go and find resources online that you can go and create different forms of scaffolding and structuring, different games. We've used word attack and said, what is word attack? How does it work, etc. We've also worked very closely with Professor James Gee's work on games and shown them how to use games in teaching language skills and so forth. All of these activities then get reiterated in all the courses so that the teacher can go and apply what they've learned in this module 1.2 to the different courses. So let me show you how one of our courses looks. Here's our maths course, for example. Our maths course focuses firstly on teaching the content of whole numbers and helping teachers to work with whole numbers. And secondly, it works on helping teachers to work with listening and speaking, because we know in maths, learners often find it very difficult to explain their thinking. So we wanted to work in a space where we show teachers how to work with helping learners to explain their thinking. So we start off by talking about whole numbers. And I love this poem from the SIOP book where the child says, our teachers come to class and they talk till their faces are like peaches. We don't. We just sit like cornstalks. And this lays the foundation for opening up the conversations about getting learners to talk in the maths class and opening up time for talk time. And how do we get learners to become proficient in explaining their math thinking is by getting them to talk. So this module is all about getting learners to speak and developing their proficiency to speak. Teachers work through this unit about whole language. It builds up their content and pedagogical knowledge around whole numbers and breaking up whole numbers, place value, etc., and then building language skills into that space. And then in the next unit, they then go and focus on the language skills of speaking and listening in the maths class. We first start with active listening. What is active listening and how do we get learners to become active listeners? We help teachers to practice active listening first and to see if they can remember items in a menu, for example, that a waiter rattles off. And then we use tools to help teachers to remember these items. Then we go over to speaking in the maths class and we give teachers some tools using Padlet and Vocary of how you can go and help learners who are maybe shy or who don't want to produce language in front of a whole group or audience, but how we can get learners using Padlet or Vocary to record themselves and practice to explain their maths thinking. And in that way, practice producing language. And at the end of it, when the teacher has learned how to use these speaking and listening tools, they then go and implement the learning from module 1 and 2 in creating a maths lesson using the SIOP model that they go and implement. That's the math lesson. And then our science lesson, you can see we worked with Sue-Ann Rampo on this. She was just fantastic in this process. Here's our scientific method. Yeah, our process for science was about reading with languages, but also about building teachers' knowledge about the scientific method. In the scientific method, we developed teachers' content knowledge about the scientific method. We also build teachers' language skills about the scientific method. Please remember that the teachers in our classrooms also don't normally speak English as a first or a home language. So for them, English might be their second, third, or fourth language. So we're also building our teachers' language proficiencies. So building, what does observe mean? What does it mean to question? And what's the difference between general questioning and scientific questioning? And of course, using that scaffolding process towards building an hypothesis and what is a scientific explanation and the testable part of a hypothesis, etc. And so we carry on. Then the teacher uses that knowledge that they have learned to go and play a little game. And as you can hear, they play the little game, they go and they play the game. There's low consequence. They just play the game and keep going. And if they get it wrong, they just get another chance. There's no marks that they lose. They can't get anything direly wrong. They just keep going and learning. These are the words and engaging with the words. Then lastly, here on this page, the teacher learns about the skills and strategies to teach language in the class. They learn about thinking skills and how I can teach thinking skills, about scaffolding. They learn about wait time. They can go and watch a video about wait time and giving children enough time to formulate and think about the answer before pressing children to answer in the class. especially for children who are not home language speakers, to give them the time to put their thoughts into action and often to translate their thoughts from a home language to the language of learning and teaching in the class needs time. And we teach them how to get to that space. And then lastly, in the science lesson, we move on to the reading space, where we can't assume that our science teachers know how to teach reading, because that's often in the space of the language teacher's domain. So we've taken the reading process and we've broken down the reading process very carefully for the science teacher, speaking about what is reading, what does reading for meaning mean, what does it mean to the science teacher, what is reading, what does the reading process engage with, etc. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation. And then we walk the teacher through the different stages of reading. What does pre-reading look like? What do they do during reading? How do they identify main ideas in a text? They walk through different activities where they go and identify the main idea from the text, and they also go and take notes as they go and learn how to take notes in an active reading capacity. And then lastly, we encourage learners and teachers to go and reflect on different activities to do after reading. We use Flipgrid as a tool for learners to produce language again and to speak about and reflect on the learning that they've done. And at the end of the unit, the teacher goes and implements what they've learned in this space in their courseware. They go and develop a lesson that they implement following the SIOP model to develop their course lesson. At the end of this, our main focus is to go and teach the teacher not only how to teach language, but we're developing, like we said, the LTPAC model. We're teaching them the language skills, we're teaching them the content knowledge, pedagogical knowledge, and technological knowledge in this process. If you have signed into the course, you are welcome to use it. As we've said, this course is being scaled across the Western Cape, across teachers in South Africa, and because it's an open education resource, it's across the UNESCO's courses. You're welcome to use it. If you have any comments or feedback, it would be lovely to hear from you, especially if you think that we can improve on it. It's a work in progress because it's a design-based research project. We're very much always open to improving on it. We're still going to add a few more subjects as we finish them. Next course that we're building is specifically focused on reading across the curriculum and how to develop reading skills in each one of the subjects. So that will be our goal for 2020 and have that course up and running. So by next year, we can present that course as a reading across the curriculum course. If anyone would like to give comments or questions, please find me on Twitter under Isabel Tarling, or you can email me directly at isabel@lemina.co.za. Our website is lemina.co.za. You can find more information on there, or you can just follow us on any one of our social media handles. Thank you, everybody. It was a privilege speaking to you.